So we try to meet monthly based on an agenda with any topics that you brought to my attention, either from the town or from the community. We have not met in a couple months, but we'll take care of a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get to the whole presentation. So first order of business is the September 23 minutes. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns? Changes? Okay.
Don't see any.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as recorded.
Okay, got a motion by Drew, second by Kevin. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, the ayes have it, so 5-0. All righty. Javier.
Over here.
Hello, Javier. Nice to meet you.
Good evening. Nice to meet you, everybody. Javier Toro. I recently joined the Carroll County planning team. I've been assigned a New Windsor area. So when it comes to planning, if there's anything you would need or anything I can help out with, please feel free to reach out to me. It's an honor to be here for the first time and start to put faces behind the emails and behind the website, so I appreciate that. Is it okay if I share a couple of updates?
Absolutely. I will add one point.
Yes.
We're pretty close to wrapping up our review of the comprehensive plan.
Ask that.
So there are some outstanding items that kind of linger back over time. So I've started to try to summarize those. So I'll reach out to you. I was hoping Emily Ann would be here. I did not hear from her. She's the one that's been taking care of the nuts and bolts for this.
What's the name of the person?
Emily Ann
Myers.
Myers, yes. Meyer or Myers?
It's singular, Meyer.
Yeah, I think it's this. Is it plural if it's Myers?
I don't know whether it is technically plural. I believe it is a spelling issue rather than a grammatical one.
But I think it's without the S, yes.
So once the meeting is over, I'll approach and I'll provide you my contact information, so feel free to reach out to me, okay?
Sure. Well, I think I have your contact, because we chatted a little bit about these meetings, so yep.
In regards to updates, wanted to share first item is when it comes to any annexations, I will be the point of contact. Feel free to reach out to me. Another item that I have is the housing study that was being conducted by the Office of Planning, spearheaded by Ms. Tiffany Fawcett. Those results have already been made public. If you have any questions or you would like to go over it, feel free to reach out. I'll be more than glad to set time to do so. When it comes to the master plan update, we are at this moment outlining outreach efforts. A series of emails have been sent out, if I'm not mistaken, to Ms. Dana Mangus, because we would like to invite key people here from New Windsor to join us for the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, so that way we can engage in a conversation of how can the master plan fit specific needs for New Windsor. From my side, those are the items I wanted to provide updates on.
Great, thank you. The next item, which is the main purpose of us gathering at this time, is the off-property, off-family, the Beecham Farm. What's the best? Okay, I see Beecham Farm on here, so we'll go with that. Stephanie?
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Stephanie Brooks?
Yes.
You guys are ready for us?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Thank you for having us.
Sure.
Mr. Schultz, member of the Planning Commission. Mr. Turo, nice to meet you. And of course, Attorney Ostrander, my esteemed colleague. So I will be quick, and then Ms. Alexander and Mr. Price Wagner here are going to have the substantive information. And then we have Matthew Huff here who can also answer a few questions. So the short of it is, and follow up to my letter, is that Mr. Huff owns 3 parcels of land. They total about 172 acres. They own the southwest side of the current limits of the town of New Windsor. And The request is to be considered during the comprehensive plan update to be included in the municipal growth area, because that's the first step to a pipeline, future development, and annexation. So in sum, the idea is that this property looks like it might be well suited if the town of New Windsor is interested in growth, right? That's the if. Are you guys interested in growth? And if you are, this might be an appropriate property. One of the key considerations that we think we've identified that you also will be considering is what sort of density would be required and sufficient to sustain expanding any sewer deficits that might exist. It sounds to me like the town of New Windsor has the water, and it might be wastewater treatment facility that would need to be considered if there was any growth considered. And to that end, if this property came in, you currently have an R3 zoning designation that allows about 3 units per acre. That would probably not be sufficient. I mean, I'm not the developer, I'm also not the state, but I do know the state rule is clear. If you wanted state funds and to be certified for a priority funding area to help you with wastewater, if you said we want growth, you need 3.5 units per acre, right? So right now, your R3 is 3 units per acre, you need 3.5, your R5 is sort of the next step up. Our thought process was, don't make this too extreme. Go, perhaps bring it in municipal growth to R3, but that might not be sufficient. So the reality is you guys should be considering something I read in your own plan, which your own plan authors from 2010 had the wisdom to say, maybe we should increase our R3 density from 3 units to 3.5, because then if we do want to grow, we'll be properly positioned for the state funds. They will only certify you at 3.5 units per acre, which is a middle ground rather than say the next property we bring in is R5, which is also an option, right? If you guys wanted that density. So those are the things from a legal sort of perspective that I identified that I know that Linda Price will further talk about. And then obviously that some of these considerations are further down the road. You first would have to say, we're going to bring the beach and farm in. But these are considerations that you should and could be talking about, that if we bring it in, how would we even develop it? And those are the things we're talking about now. And then obviously the annexation process you guys are familiar with. Once it's in, we would file a petition for annexation. There would be negotiations, and at the same time you'd be certifying things to the state about requesting this via a PFA, a priority funding area. So to that end, I would just ask Mr. Matt Huff just a couple questions, because he is a property owner and it's always nice to get consent from the property owner for him to confirm that he is consenting to the request. So Matt, if you guys are comfortable with him sitting, that's fine, or standing, but.
Microphones.
Do we need this?
I can have,
I know it's got a button somewhere there.
this is a little, offset. Did you find it?
Yeah.
Lit up?
Should I be offended that you didn't offer my?
Well, I was thinking about that when.
No, you are always able to be heard.
Okay, so Matt, I just wanted to confirm, you own the properties that we're talking about, these 3 parcels, they comprise about 172 acres that everybody refers to as the beach and farm.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And is it your desire to request that the town of New Windsor consider these properties to be included in the municipal growth area?
Yes, I do.
And are you, what's the current use of the property?
It's agriculture.
Okay. And you yourself are a resident of New Windsor?
New Windsor area.
Right, New Windsor, right, but then,
I live on Winter Street.
right. And so, but you're familiar with the area and how the development's gone, and is this something, you've considered and consulted with other people, sort of possible uses for your property, right?
Yeah. All the way back when they put in Atlee Bridge out here, we had to grant Mr. Sponseller a right of way for the water, where the water ran down to the stream, right away for the county. And at that time, my father actually tried to get the town to give him right away for sewer and water down to the property, and that was in mid-70s. Yeah, he fought that back and forth a little bit, but didn't get anywhere. So, the sewer and water stops at the top of the hill up there.
And are you aware that you will, and you agree you'll be willing to pay those town taxes if you're brought into the municipal growth area?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. So you're familiar with the area and the property, and this is something that you as a property owner, familiar with this area, see as a potential, future benefit use for the town of New Windsor?
Yes.
Use of this land?
Definitely. All of our other farms are all in ag preservation. This is the one that we never put in, even though Ralph Robertson kind of wanted it years ago. And we stayed with it.
So it's available for use, and otherwise, if it wasn't ag preservation, are you aware of any other large tracts of land that are right contiguous to the town of New Windsor where, I'm not asking you to do the job of the engineer or development.
Not that I know of, no.
Right, but that you're aware of where growth could happen, so I think that's one of the reasons that this is being considered, it's not a, it seems like a practical, possible inclusion. Is there anything else you can think of to share with the planning commission members, because that's probably all my questions.
I've grown up in New Windsor my entire life, and our family's been there for 150 years, out on Hawks Hill Road, and I've never moved more than all my life. I'm planning on it anytime soon.
If you could just help us for the record, I know everybody knows each other, but your name again? Your name?
Matthew Huff.
Matthew Hoff, okay.
And my personal residence is 1200A Winter Church Road.
Winter's Church, yep, okay, thank you.
So, Linda and privacy, I'm not sure if you want to take over, I don't know how much, you probably don't need prompting. They're going to explain the concept and the renderings. I don't know, you need
I don't know. Probably for recording.
And I talked to.
But it does go, it gets recorded through
I'm
CMC.
Alexander,
And Linda Alexander.
work for CLSI. I'm gonna date myself real quick. I've been working with CLSI for 40 years.
Okay.
Okay, so, anyway, real quick on the property itself. This property has been considered for a very long time as being the one piece that's not cut off from the town or that's available for the town for development for 2007 at least, okay? It got the zoning changed to R40,000 in 2014, roughly.
Land use.
Well, land use, yeah.
The land use.
The land use ended up getting changed for potential development in the county. Conveyor came through. When we did the conveyor, we were very cognizant of what this property could be developed as, okay? We developed this map here when we were working on the conveyor to show, at that point in time, Lehigh, as well as the town, what was available as far as how New Windsor was boxed in as far as ag preservation, okay? Everything, and I can pull this map up here more, but the white, obviously this big white thing here, 800 acres is Lehigh for it. This purple that you see on here is ag preservation currently in the county, okay? The orange we have on here is the current growth area for the town of New Windsor. The red is the town's limits right now. We added the new FEMA mapping because when this new FEMA mapping came out in 2017, it cut some of these areas off, okay? And the Beecham Farm is shown in black, okay? As you can see, there's a couple other places, but they're cut off by the railroad. They're cut off by the railroad through here. The Beecham Farm is one of the only last surviving pieces that's not in ag pres that chokes the town down, okay? So this has been a process we've been going through since about 2010 when Lehigh approached about the conveyor coming through, how the conveyor could come through, what mitigation could happen to impact this. The layout that you see that we started was started back in 2010. It's been modified to account for more of a overall development plan, okay? Single families, this is Atlee Ridge here. Single families over here, some duplexes here, access through Lehigh's property here, which was negotiated a long time ago. Okay, and potential park, fields, whatever. Now, we threw that in to buffer from the ag presence over here, and then there's larger lots out here on Greenwood Church, okay? Again, to not impact these homeowners over here, it's very similar. This is nothing set in stone, this is just to give you an idea. This density on here by no means meets the 3.5. It's only 200 lots here, 203 lots. But it does meet the current zone as far as the ability to put single families and duplexes in place. The R3 zone doesn't allow for townhouses. Right now, okay?
So what you have sitting there right now, the singles roughly, what do you have? I mean, I understand that's not.
About 75 duplexes, and the rest of them are singles. There's
Right.
203 units total.
203 units total.
Now, Craig, keep in mind, some of this takes into account the current stormwater management regulations that require an awful lot of stormwater management. We looked hard at whether we could put townhouses because we feel like the townhouse element, duplex element, single family element kind of gives that workforce housing type of situation going on. The code, your current code doesn't allow for that. Now, I'm not saying down the road, 3 or 4 or 5 years, that couldn't be talked about. I'm just saying we're looking at it as a first step process. First step process, R3 next to an R3. Okay? Come into the growth area. Once we're in that growth area, in the comp plan, then we start to talk about, okay, what gets us into the state's priority area so we can try to maximize the potential for sewer, okay, funding for sewer. There is a point at which, obviously, the more density we would get in the long run on here helps pay for not only the potentially upgrades to the plant. Now, that doesn't mean that it could be completely funded like that, but none of the sewer and water that's going to happen with this site would be town funded. It would mean like all these utilities would be built as part of the development by the developer. The plan itself, Bryce can talk to more of those numbers, but the plan itself, you know, who knows what 5 years down the road that's going to cost. But there could be funding out there through the state if we can get into that PFF, which is what Steph now talking about. But at this point, we have to get the first step, which is that comp plan portion of it. Then we can work on negotiating. If we come in as an R3, are we coming in as an R5? Are we changing that R3 zoning just a little bit to bump that density up, to allow us to get more density here, to qualify for more state money, as well as the more users we bring on here, potentially overall, the less money it costs for people who are currently in the town for the water and sewer that they're paying for now. I do know that has been a concern. We've been involved in a couple cases where we've actually put wells in and septics inside the town because they didn't want to connect to the public utilities. So there's a couple of them on the outskirts of town that, you know, we had to put wells in and stuff. But that's a small unit. But my point with that is the more, we're not asking for crazy density. However, if it means that we can get additional funding and we can help town with some of their sewer issues at the same time, we shall know. I mean, at this point, we're willing to do that and we're willing to work and willing to try to help the town get as much money for the upgrade that they already need, in addition to whatever this would be. I will say that the Huffs intend to stay involved with everything they're doing. There would be a developer brought in to fund a lot of the development, but based on the Huff's past history with jobs that we've done for them, they would not be walking away. They would be working with the developer to prevent whatever product there was. That being said, one of the other boards on here just gives an idea of the type of house we're talking about. We're not talking about small duplexes, and we're not talking about small single families. That single family is built over in a job in Westminster called Stonegate, yeah, thank you, I was thinking Stonehenge, but that wasn't it. The other duplex is a little bit, not quite what we would do for New Windsor, but it's the size. Those duplexes are actually in County right now. And those are workforce housing that was put up in the last 2 years in County. So,
Talk about the ones just before you get to Harney Road.
yes, exactly, sir. And those are larger. Now, they're all rentals. That's not what we're intending here, but they're a nice town feel. One of the items we were looking here too is our duplexes have very few front entries. Most of these have alleys in the back. And they would provide either two things. Either they would have a parking area, or they could have a garage in the back. You know, more of an old town feel for the duplexes. Urbana uses that.
Yeah.
City of Frederick has that technique. There's enough room to do that here. And it gives an old town feel to a new community, which is kind of, I think, what we were talking about, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Old town feel to a new community. So when you come in, it doesn't look like just any other development with all the houses sitting there. It has that different feel to it.
Linda, have you done the calculations that if the zoning was changed to the 3.5, what the unit capacity would be?
Given the fact that we have the conveyor and some sensitive areas, we're looking at, I think, roughly what we 440. We're about 440 versus 300. And now, I'm not saying that's just a straight calculation. I don't know that there's 400 units on that property to try to actually lay them out. You know what I mean? And still provide the amenities, still provide the roads. You know what I mean? To get that density.
Open space and
Correct.
stuff like that, yeah.
To get that density, you almost need to have some townhouse component to it, for sure. Yeah. Because right now, that density that you're seeing there is duplexes and singles. Those duplexes are pretty big lots too, so. But currently, existing users on your system is approximately 800. You know, if we were talking 400 units or something like that, we would be almost increasing by 50% the number of users. Don't know what that number looks like when you start talking about the treatment plant, you know, but when you start talking that many users, over the long run, it helps the developer potentially put towards the treatment plant. You know what I mean? Like in Frederick, when they have these situations happen, they have what's known as a developer agreement. And that developer agreement has the developer come in and help fund certain items, whether it be a public road, whether it be sewer upgrades, water systems, that kind of thing. Not that that's not possible here. It's just, I feel like that's down the road 5 years, something like that. But it's still something we thought about in making the request to come in. And we wanted to be fair and say, look, we could come in as R3, only 300 lots, but, or 200 lots, but that may not get to the priority funded area where the monies are really out there for it. And we talked to Gary Guy about the numbers. Not sure how they would all pan out yet until we had an idea about that density and were able to approach the state. But the state wouldn't even talk to us until this thing is already in the growth area. Our intention with that being in the growth area would be then the next step would be to start talking to the state about that. And then potentially do the master plan. You know, we would, from a master plan water sewer, we're not talking about being a W7, I'm sorry, a W5 or an S5. We would be long range until we had an idea what the funding was available. So, and that's the short of it. Answer any questions you got.
Currently, we're the town, we're looking for water resources. Do you know whether any has been identified on that property? Matt, you know?
No, I mean, there's a lot of springs on that property, but
Yeah.
we haven't done any well drilling
There's
there.
an existing pond on the property, and there's some springs that are coming down through there, and there's pretty significant streams on the property, which obviously would reduce the density. That's why I was saying it's only 400 something. Don't know. We thought about, we did possibly talk about a well. I don't think we dug deep enough when we did the quarry, I'm sorry, not the quarry, when we did the borings for the conveyor, they didn't go deep enough to identify. They only went 80 feet.
Can I ask what the current situation is, over on Barrowsox, town farms over there? With the water supply that we currently have?
I don't have, and Dave,
I mean, as far as like the capacities we get from that, I think we're getting about 50% of the town's water from that area, yeah.
My brother lives in the farm right next to it, they work to take the water recovery area off in Ag Pres, and we find that they didn't really offer anything for it. And then as our brother claims it's got a high capacity.
Yeah, we have, you know, very old
Yeah.
pipes coming from that,
That's a big
that's,
problem
yes,
over there.
right.
Is there any future looking to upgrade those, maybe water will come from there?
Well, we do talk about that, but it's, you know, many millions of dollars, and we just did get our pipes through town. We just had them redone, so that was the first step before we could start, you know, moving on any farther to redo any of even think about those.
I mean, we focused on the sewer, the sewer questions and stuff like that, that we came up with, and the deficits and stuff. We didn't really focus completely on the water.
Yeah. You know, the sewer, of course, you know, goes to the capacity of what the town's allowed to put into the system, so that, you know, this would blow that out of our current capacities, obviously, and so all that would have to, you know, be talked about. And I'm looking at the roads coming in. You said there was an agreed upon entry off through the Lehigh property there on the other, through that one. And then this other road, is that
This
coming in
lines up-
through
This lines up.
with Atlee, and that's Hollowell?
There's a connection shown to Hollowell because there was an intention when Hollowell was built for that road to come through. You can tell by the record plots and the temporary situation of that cul-de-sac. We're showing it connected. You guys will call whether you want it connected at some point in time. But we showed it because it was good planning to be able to access out this way, come out here. Now this entrance here, if you're familiar with coming out Old New Windsor Road, there's an entrance that the conveyor uses right now to come off of here that has good sight distance. That's the entrance we would use to come in and come across there.
And I see there's a area between houses here that's left open space between those two groups of houses in the single family home area, yes.
There's a stream in here.
That's a stream running through there.
Stream, there's a definite swale when it starts to go to stream here. So this is a sensitive area that we
Okay.
would,
All right, that's why
from a
that's there.
county standpoint, we would probably need to put some type of buffering on. So that's what this is.
Gotcha.
That blue is basically a 100-foot stream buffer on that whole, and here's the existing pond area.
Okay. And the Lehigh conveyor runs along
Right
the
here.
edge there?
Right there's the conveyor.
Okay, there's it,
Then
okay.
it goes underground and comes out through here. Comes across this piece.
Okay. So that's above ground, that
It's above
piece
ground
right there.
here with existing stream on both sides of that right now,
Gotcha.
as well as noise reduction inside of it.
That's gonna be upgraded.
Yeah.
And then there's landscaping that's been put in as well.
Yeah.
I'm Daniel Huff, for the record, Matt's cousin.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh, this is Carroll County.
Right, your cousin also?
yeah,
Sure, we hired him.
He's family.
I can obviously answer any questions you have, and the sewer aspect of things and potential deficits. Probably all you know when it comes to even within the town limits, what there is left, global land inventory wise. Even if all that is built out, the town will also will be in a deficit, even what's currently within the area. So, the expansion may need to happen down the road at some point, regardless of if this project does anything. But I did some analysis, and I think that the deficit may not be as much as it was thought to be. Not looking at what's actually on the ground today, and road land and joy-wise, what could potentially still be built. There's definitely properties that show there's potential for more development. However, there's maybe a house right in the middle and just, you're not going to do it. So I was able to reduce the intensity a lot down just based on the analysis, look at it. But yeah, it's all, we probably need to have things should, as we move forward, the plan, update the plan aspect, and then, develop that aspect, and talking with the town and moving forward with that. But the biggest piece in the beginning is first being the growth area.
When we looked at this, we looked at it from a perspective of taking the county's analysis of what was a deficit, because we asked Gary if he had any feedback. Well, Price used to do this all the time in the county, so we were able to delve into a little bit more, and that's why Price, we were saying that the county takes just the tax map. It shows all these parcels. But you could have a house built in the middle of 3 parcels. The chances of them being 3 separate pieces and having 3 separate uses or whatever isn't going to happen unless somebody tears a house down and builds new. So that's kind of the stuff we were looking at. Doesn't mean that it fixed the deficit problem existing, and that it's going to fix this. It's just, we looked at it for real numbers, and then how we would impact it, and then how the density, the increase in the density would impact it. So it's almost like if you're going to go to the state and ask for money, ask for the most you can get for the full density. Maybe we only get this. You know what I mean? True. I mean, maybe it's a negotiation. Maybe we're not going to get 25 million, right? But maybe we get 12. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's, and you back it down from there and then go. That's what we've done in other jurisdictions too, when it's gone to sewer.
Silly question, moving, say if the zoning gets changed to R3.5, but you really can't fit it all in there, do you then still have to, in order to get the funds, have to meet the match of lots, or?
That's their question. Because that's just a question that I asked Stephanie. I'm like, okay.
I mean, by having the density, does that get you the money, and then do you have to actually do it to keep it?
Well, the idea is you'll certify, and I won't bore you with the statutes that I read, but they're thorough, they're kind of check the box.
So then you
1, 2,
do
3,
what you
4,
have to
you're
say.
gonna certify that this has, like, we are striving for, and it's zoned for 3.5 units per acre, but the answer is, if it explains, there are exceptions to the rule, because no property can perfectly fit 3.5 units per acre. There's no, rarely a piece of land that if you can't, every single acre have 3.5 units, because some of them are used for stormwater, some are used for, other uses, parks, green space. So the answer is no, they have to accept the plan.
Okay.
But you have
As
to
long as
say,
it's zoned for it and they accept the plan,
Right.
you're fine. Okay, okay, okay.
You're showing that you're demonstrating that you're intending
Yes,
to reach a goal of 3.5 per acre.
okay.
But you're always
You
going to have
can't.
but you
environmental
can't
features.
say I'm zoned for R3, which only allows 3 units per acre, but give me the PFA funding, which is the priority funding.
That's what I was, one of the questions I'm asking is because of that.
That's the delta.
Changing that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be that, it just means it's eligible. Okay,
And our contention with that is, we could develop that layout without knowing that. However, I don't know, like, depending on what kind of monies were needed, right? Is there a point at which, okay, we don't need 400 units, but let's say 300 units, for instance, and the developer can help contribute more towards the upgrade. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's able to do that at 300 units or 350 units versus 200 units. No, he
yep.
can still contribute, but probably not as much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that number ends up being, because we don't know what the plant's gonna end up needing to be until we know the number.
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
I think it's like says a lot just because I was actually reading your master plan, right? Like it's a big, long document. But it says a lot that long ago, the members, the plan's authors were contemplating your R3 zone, right? And now we're 10 or 14 years later, like that was already being thought about and said, maybe we should do this, right? And now it's coming up again. And so I'm not saying, I'm suggesting that if the town of New Windsor is interested in growth, maybe you have to act on that now. Because at some point, there's no urgency right now. There's certainly no urgency for Matthew Hawes who owns the property. There's just like, hey, let's talk about this. But at a certain point, that property might not be available for growth. It could be that they decide, you know what, let's sell an ag preservation easement on that one too. And then it is no longer available to the town of New Windsor. So I'm just suggesting now, everybody's sort of like, it's not urgent, but you should contemplate this. Should we change R3 to to have 3.5 units per acre, so that when we do bring parcels in, and it seems like this is only a large one, we're already positioned, right? We brought it in at that, and if you say, no, we're not interested in growth, well, then everybody has the answer now, and then Matt can talk to the county.
Along with that is, I think that there's more and more of a push for, I don't necessarily like the word affordable housing, but I think you know what I mean as far as like workforce housing. And there's been a shift in the type of housing that people are looking for, given what's selling, okay? Townhouses, duplexes, smaller single-family lots. And I think the funding, the pushes at the state level as well for this workforce housing, which means that when you come in to the state and you start saying, you know what, we really want to do this, we've got this that we can do, it's in our growth area, we want to provide, we want to grow our community some, but we're not going crazy with it, or whatever the case may be, is there's a potential that there's going to be even more funding coming that way at the state level for that type of use. And when you start using those workforce housing, and we want to put that type of use out there, and we have this long-term plan, and it's going to be built out over a period of 5 years or whatever, there could be more money down the road than I think what may be currently available. I don't know, Dan, you've got a take on that more than I do. But it seems like that's the way it's going. That's the way it seems to be for Tawnytown. We are going to massive developments right now in Tawnytown. Okay, we're working on one that's 480 units. We're getting ready to submit a preliminary plan on another 380 units. And they're all townhouses and single family. So I'm not saying that you guys are to that extent. I'm just saying they're close to Frederick. They know that workforce housing is where they want to be. And they're being very controlled about how it's going in. They're putting duplexes with the rear entries on them, all about garages. They're being very strict about that. And I think the town of New Windsor has the ability to do that. It just may not happen in the next 2 or 3 years, but we got to at least do the first step and get the comp plan. So.
And I think one thing that was mentioned that's important to say is, I was born and raised in New Windsor as well, is, and I know, and Linda, you made reference to it, the other development project I did for the other side of the family in Reisterstown. And that was a project that I think probably is what we will do here, which is to stay involved, because, Matt and his family's not going anywhere. They've been there since the 1860s, I believe it is. When we go back and look through the deeds, and that was the old family farm, the old family hub farm. Our desire is to stay involved because we want to be able to have influence on what the end product is. And dealt with a lot of developers and done development myself through the years. There's good and bad out there, but with us being involved, then it gives us the ability to kind of have a lot more influence on what that ends up. Because I know with the Statewood that we did out in Reisterstown, we ended up with no flag lots. We saved no flag lots. I hate flag lots, but that's another conversation. We ended up with a park. We had like 300-year-old trees, where we could have taken lots, we did not. So it's really important, I think Matt philosophically feels the same way that I do, that, you know, when we're 80 years old, assuming we're both gonna be 55 this year, you're 55, right? Yeah. So, you know, when we're driving around like 75 and this thing is done, or 80, depending on how long this thing takes. And that's another reason I don't wanna be trying, because it's a long project. I mean, it's getting into the designated growth area, it's annexing, and then it's actually doing the development. You know, a lot of people, when they see roads going in, they think that it just happened overnight. The reality is someone's been dealing with that for 10 years. We want to be able to drive by it, whether when we're 75, and feel like we're proud of how it turned out. And I know and I don't often drive by, but the place in Reisterstown, there was another development done at the same time that we did ours. You know which one I'm talking about. You ride by through the one that we did compared to that one across the street. Ours is aged a lot better, you know. Because we even had covenants, like, you know, we did some, like, brick to grade, we did overhangs, we did some things to kind of control what that product looked like there, where they did not at the one across the way. And also some of the way it was cut up was not cool. Okay.
And that's ways of making a house that is not super expensive, look expensive, you know what I mean, like the architectural features. And there's ones that went into Town on Harney Road. I mean, yes, they're rentals, but some of them look very expensive.
Nice.
Just by the stonework and
nice.
the basic dormers and stuff. So that's a down the road type of thing where the planning commission would be highly involved in all that portion of it. But ultimately, we need to get.
But you kind of get a sense of where we're coming from.
Yeah, that's what we're
Those
trying to
kind
do.
of things are, you know, important to us as well.
I feel like over the years, the developments that look like they grew as part of the town and have the same elements as the older sections of the towns do. Urbana is one of those areas. Frederick City does it very well in certain areas. But there's other places, no offense to Westminster, when they put the greens in, the greens does not look like it belongs, you know what I mean? But there's other requirements that do. So over the years, when the developments come in, I think that they look more like what's the old town feel. And the alleys with it, you know, that's the concept that we set with, that's the concept that's kind of on there. That's the mindset that went into the circular roads, you know, everything's not square on. Lays with the land very well, if you're not familiar with the land, but when you see the topography out there, it lays very well with that. You know, that's just the mindset of how everything was developed over the last literally 14 years, because we started in 2010. So obviously, we're not talking about something that we expect to happen in the next 2 years when we've been dealing with it for 14 already, right? Yeah.
But we need to be alive to be able to get it done.
Yes. Yeah.
Because things change, you know, people pass away, land moves on, people put in that correct.
Any other questions, thoughts?
I think I'm okay.
Great. Well,
Thank you very much.
coming. Glad we were able to make this happen, because
Well, thank you
It was a
all
couple
for
months.
having us and
Sure.
for your time.
Sure.
And, yeah, thank you, and of course, we're available, and we all have our contact information for additional questions, and I'm sure if there's interest or no interest, there will be, you know, next step of communication and additional inquisition.
Are we allowed to hold on to the charts, or could we get electronic copy of them or
Would
something?
you be interested? Yeah. Good. Okay. I have no problem with you keeping these too if you want them, but I can certainly, we have these in all PDF formats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she brought actual copies.
I have 8.5 by 11 copies if you want, you know. hard
Sure,
copy.
sure.
The other thing too is if we give you the
We got a
PDFs,
couple
you
members
can
that
kind of
are
window in on
here.
a little
Yeah.
easier
I have
to see what we're
extra.
talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, the PDFs are nice.
Yeah, I'll say, but it's more important that the members have than,
I have 10 of each.
oh, well, there's not 10 of us here.
That makes life easier. You can send it to Mark.
You want one of each?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need multiples of one, I need one of each. There we go.
I'm trying.
Let's
do it. Yeah, just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Give you each, that's showing the agricultural preservation lands. I'll give you the second one, but I wasn't adept enough in giving him the first one.
It's okay.
Do it well.
The PDF will be.
PDF will be fine. I don't,
Here's just a
since you printed it, I'll take it, but typically I don't use paper.
rough rendering, me too, just.
But since you printed it in that nice copier, I'll take it.
Thank you. Never print.
We don't have a lot of equipment, I'm just telling you. No, we don't have a lot of equipment.
I'm giving you this too. I was just afraid that I was gonna.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
See?
Yeah, that's a little small. I think the PDF will help.
Yeah.
So we're leaving the board.
Yeah, we'll do the board.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Very informative.
It's really more for the CMC, which records everything.
Nope.
I think we're good. Thank you all very, very much.
Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you very, very much.
There's a typo.
Are you Trevor's dad, or?
No, not Trevor.
Okay,
He's
so-
my second cousin twice removed.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's a lot of different
There's
branches.
so many, yes, that's what I was asking.
Emails,
You know, the Samuel Huff.
and apparently I don't have a good number.
Okay,
They're gonna close out, or they're gonna say our next meetings are, and then somebody's gonna say I move to adjourn. And if it ain't them, it's gonna be me.
or that's the only reason I knew the name, so I'm not a Carroll County.
Somewhere he's gonna park.
Oh, jeez.
My milk's dropping
I like that, I like that.
He's the son you never wanted. He's a huckster.
He's bagging. Where's he parked, do you know?
Isn't that incredible?
Well, I'll find you. If you wanna go out there, I'll find you. All right.
So I had hoped that I would be able to get from Emily Ann the latest draft. She's not responding to anything.
Not like a zip drive, or not, I know you asked for like a zip drive or something, didn't you? And
Yeah, she said she'd give a zip drive when we were last here in September. And I've followed up with several emails. I'll ask Dana if she has any type of contact. I know Kim has her new address in Frederick, so we may have to go over and visit her.
The real question is, do we owe her any money?
yeah, I was gonna say,
If we owe her
is
money and
she
don't pay
waiting
her, we'll
on?
hear from her.
And Dana will attest to this. I have asked regularly, it's probably been a year since we have paid her anything because she hasn't invoiced anything.
Hey, girl.
And, you know, I don't know what else to do. I know that Dana has also said something, but there have been regular interactions with that. Whenever I see her face to face, I say, you owe me a bill. And Gary is going to hit the roof.
He's losing his mind when he sees it.
Yeah, well, we only had so much in the budget for this year.
What was
That
earmarked?
money from last year isn't carrying forward, so, you know, and I told her that, but I don't know. So I was hoping before now to be able to get something to put, because I know I promised to a couple of you that we could have something hard copy in hand to look at. So I'm getting a little anxious. I look at price, you know, and my God, we've been through Abigail.
I was laughing, but I thought, we get price back?
You're the fourth Carroll County planning representative that's worked with us.
Previous, yes. No, not,
Oh, not original. We've had a lot, but he was here for quite a while.
original for me, 5 years ago.
When we did this back in
Randolph.
2000, yeah, Randolph, I'm sorry, I forget. When we did this back in 2007.
Oh, yeah.
2005,
That was
2007,
before
we
Price.
had Carroll County Planning
Price.
Yeah, over the years, we've had a
work with
lot.
us,
Yeah.
did the scribing, did the changing, provided us a lot of information. The world has changed, and we had somebody come in here, and actually,
Oh, honey, you and I are going
Price, we
way
had
back.
somebody from the
He's
state.
been retired 8
Came
years.
in, if you remember, from state planning, who was going to work with us, and then his boss from the state came in here and said, nah, that ain't gonna happen.
Calhoun's Dave Three's ex-wife.
We had contracted with somebody to try to help us because this is.
No, that was before.
What was her name? Started with a B.
That's why there were things,
That was
the
before
price
Bobby.
I
promised,
think maybe it was before that.
Abigail promised. Randolph tried to pick it up, but he didn't stay here long enough with us.
And I'm not calling her
So
name
it's not
up.
fair to you to say, hey, but I will try to summarize it for you.
I won't make any empty promises, but we can definitely engage in that conversation. You can, this week is gonna be difficult, but, you know, starting next week, please feel free to reach out to me whenever it's convenient for you, and we can engage. Because, yes, previously when we spoke, you mentioned there were some pending items. I already mentioned to Mary about it. Mark mentioned there's some items that were supposed to be worked on, and those are still pending. So, yes, I'll be open to that.
When we did this again back in 2007 and we revised in 2010, we had 2000 census data, and there were a variety of tables and machinations were provided by Barb Lilly from Carroll County Planning, and we really haven't gotten any of that. So some of us have done some poking around trying to get some census data, so that will be something that I'll talk about with you to see what you might be able to help us with. But in terms of this issue that we just had a presentation made to us, all of you were here, obviously, Javier wasn't, but the rest of us were here when Gary and Wayne came and talked with us about the utilities. And our sewage capacity, we are pretty much maxed out with that, with some other things that we have a school that's here in town that is leasing some property, but they have some needs. So, and my understanding is with Dickinson Run, we can't build a larger plant and dump into Dickinson Run. So there has to be a more significant wastewater resolution before we would consider, a 50% addition. And I'm not sure if they're really aware of the magnitude of it.
And I debated asking a question about possible commercial retail in there to help with the tax base, but I didn't think this is discussion for that.
Well,
They don't want to do that.
Well, but
Because how much retail in this part of the world exists or has gone out of business in the last 10 years? This is the thing for me, so
no, I understand.
I have been having
I'm
this
just looking
argument
at
with
money
planners
for the
for
town.
35 years.
Yeah.
And they're always rebuilding tiny towns, and I said if tiny towns were viable, they wouldn't have died in the first place. So I've been going around and around on this. There was a whole lot of discussion about doing that out at Snyder Summit. Little mom and pop stores. You remember the mom and pop conversation? Well, mom and pop have a mortgage out there, and that's where they live. They're not running a store downstairs. So that's the thing for me. I'm sorry, I shouldn't mouth off.
No, I do remember that from before, to be honest with you, yeah.
and
Well, it'll be interesting.
I feel better because when I think it's Dan, the attorney.
No, Stephanie is the attorney. Dan is the cousin.
Yeah, but Dan's is an attorney also. Is
I don't think he is.
No, he was the one that presented to us in the room about this.
He's Sam Huff, the realtor's son. Sam in Georgia.
Either way, the gentleman.
He's been in this business
He's the one
forever.
that talked with us initially. Yeah, so when he initially had talked with us about this, I left with, they were talking about a couple hundred units. Today, now I understand, and then I think you had heard or had some 400. Now I see how that bridges. We have, according to the census, 1,400 residents in New Windsor right now. I don't know how many units that is. Is that 800? Is that what that they?
770 or something, I don't remember.
I think we are close to 800 units.
By 800.
With the new development.
Right, with the new development.
Completion, yes.
So what we're looking at here is this parcel of conservatively 25%, 25 to 50%.
That's not with the density they wanted, it would go to half.
25 to, so we're talking about a significant growth to town.
It's a
And
big
we
project.
already have these limitations, so there would be a significant contribution that would, and plan. So We're not at the point yet where we say yay or nay on this, but I just want everybody to hearken back to our discussions over the last several years as we've been going through this plan about the small town feel. And we have known that we have this ag preservation all around us. I wasn't part of any of that when that all happened. That's been around for decades. But we know that as a town, that we are very limited to growth. That's obviously is a large parcel. It is somewhat connected, not somewhat, it is connected, could be connected to town. So theoretically, if we had it in the boundaries, we could, but that's a decision we would have to make if we want to include that in our comprehensive plan. I hear that noise out there.
To be candid, I haven't seen Stephanie in a year, and her baby with her husband, not alone, is in the car, and I've never seen the baby. So I'm listening to hear if they're still there chatting, because I told her when we were done I'd come out and see the baby.
Well, go right ahead, because,
And I don't make any
I'm just talking
decisions.
everybody, just out, remember the discussions that we had.
So by adding them, it's a step. It's not an approval for anything, or it's just a possible step, correct? Or does it mean that, we've agreed to let them do what they want to do?
No, it does not. If they are included in the growth area boundary, that property ultimately becomes available for annexation should the electeds want to annex it and can work out.
At the time,
It doesn't bind the town
Okay.
in any way.
Okay.
It is legally just the first step, without which they cannot
Okay.
annex it.
They can't move forward without it, but it doesn't allow them to move forward without another approval by us or the town council.
Many, many, many more approvals
Okay.
by you
Okay.
and or the council.
Okay. That's what I was, okay.
And the state.
If we don't have it in the growth area boundary, they can't
They
ask us.
cannot, they can't apply for an annex.
Go to those other more steps. Okay.
I would like to maybe have a little more in-depth conversation on what could preclude them from moving forward if we, in fact, did put them in the growth area boundary, and then down the road, things started to move. What kind of, I know there's lots and lots of approvals, but what kinds of things could the town do to say, no, we just really don't want to, and we don't, I don't feel comfortable being in a position where they can say, but too bad because A, B, and C. I don't want us to be in that kind of position. I want to make sure.
Very good thought process.
Yeah.
To go, it's a long road.
Right.
But you
We
like to
want to know our off
what-
ramps.
what your off ramps are, where the.
That's a good word. I agree. I like that.
So Michelle, you're out?
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
I'm okay. I just want, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year.
There isn't really, unless you're gonna talk about this some more.
No.
No.
Nope. Our next meeting is the 27th
January?
of January, yes, next year. And I will not be available, I'll be out of the country. Without getting something from Emily Ann, it's gonna be kind of hard for us to pick things up, so I will make the concerted effort to get that. And then, of course, the next one after that is the 24th of February. So
So the 27th is,
27th of January, can you,
it should be unless
okay,
meteor strikes or something like that.
the 24th of
There's a
February?
meteor shower real close to it now. Just stay out of space.
You know, the clinker in all of this could be that the county simply steps in. I never thought about this till they mention it and simply decides that's gonna be agricultural land, right?
I don't.
The county can do that.
Well, I think they made the offer and they turned it down.
Offer that,
Well, they can, but to put it into like ag pres.
Right.
But they don't have to accept that.
I realize that.
They
but
have already turned it down.
Yes, they certainly, the county
Oh, they
certainly.
already turned it down?
That's what it sounds like they said.
I couldn't tell where the turning down came. Did the county approach them? Or did they
Started
say?
talking to the county and not come up with a price that they liked. That's more, in a sense, I don't think the county would give them enough money that made it worth their while to join Ag Press.
That they decided they did not want to accept the county.
Robertson, he, at the time, was head of that Ag Preservation Committee or whatever.
And you have to, you think maybe, I'm looking at it, maybe they were thinking Lehigh was going to offer something as that piece of property was, moving from New Windsor over to Union Bridge. And so, maybe they decided to hold back on that farm for a while to see what was going on with it. Don't know, just guessing.
And obviously the R3 density, which is, they want to get a 3.5, that allows duplexes, but it doesn't, does it allow I guess it wouldn't allow condominiums or? So I'm trying to figure out a way to get them density with not the density that they want to, like going to townhomes where you're putting a block of 6 townhomes together because parking just becomes horrible.
That I don't know. And you also have to remember, on the surface, this looks more pleasing to the eye and from what we normally see. But when we were doing Snyder Summit, we came up with, it was called a traditional neighborhood design, TND, that was like this. And it had carriage houses in the back, it had alleys. And when we got, and they had drew some wonderful looking, houses they took architectural details from around town and applied them. It looked really cool. But as we got into the nuts and bolts, laying out the roads, talking with the fire company, it did not fly because things like the fire company's vehicles could not get back to the garages. Where do fires happen? Where people park their cars? And so we went through all of that. And you see there is no alleys up there. There's, it's a certain, and that's where it ended up. I know Urbana did it, yes, that we used that same thing when we were doing that design, and it just did not happen. So although I see this and I think, wow, that's not horrible.
You know the reality.
The reality is that may not be able to happen for lots of reasons.
And Urbana also put in a city.
Well,
as well. Our Urbana basically created an entire city.
There's a lot more space down
much more acres.
But there's more space here than what we had at the top, because before the reserve, it was, I don't remember, but there were several iterations.
Yes.
But the very first set of plans we got really looked nice. But it didn't work out.
So, I always don't get too attached because there's a lot of things, and three entryways is nice, but I know the people in Holloway are certainly going to have some words. They've been living up there for forever.
And now all of a sudden they're through street.
400 potential.
400 cars come through?
It's a long, I'm not poo-pooing anything. It's just a lot of things that we all need to think about. We did the right thing by getting our DRRA and approved through the town council. So you heard her talking about getting the developer to agree to all those things up front, which wasn't possible without that. So we do have things in place, but I personally don't feel comfortable going down any road where I don't know the off ramps. I like that, where we could get off if we had to, or where the big speed bumps are for the town. So,
well, if we don't put it into the growth area boundary, then the off ramps aren't even an issue.
Correct.
So there's a finality to that from our perspective, that in the next calendar year, we'll have to address that by the time we complete this plan. So that's probably the very first decision point, whether we include it. That is the first step for them to get that. And then they decide which direction they want to go. And I just want to, again, because all of us have been on this since we began this process a couple years ago. And we kind of had a constant theme as we've gone through this. So that is a decision point that we did not have discussions about our growth area boundary during this.
Because we didn't think we had anywhere to go.
Yeah, well, not only did
We've had that discussion that there's nowhere we can
there have been
expand.
comments that we have consistently made throughout this about the feel
Yeah.
of what we wanted the town to be and to stay with. And then, of course, once we put together the plan, complete the plan, it goes to the town council for them to accept or not. And so that's also, another step. I mean, we can put it in there, but then the town council will have their discussion about whether they will accept. And I know either direction that we go with the growth area boundary, that will be a topic for discussion. Sure. So, just, for what that's worth. Okay, thanks for coming. Great to meet you, Javier, for sure.
Nice to meet you.
And in fairness to you, as soon as I can get with our scribe,
Please.
to find out what she's got, because I don't know about you guys, but when each time we sit down, I feel like I'm kind of seeing this for the first time.
Well, because we don't have copies of it. They've never been
We
sent.
have copies. I'm not a big fan of Word when you have all the changes and stuff in it.
Yeah.
So I spend too much time interpreting what I'm looking at. What does it really look like?
Yeah.
That's why I want to get from her, where do we stand? I have my notes of what we need, but frankly, it's been a couple years now, we've been working on this, so it's, yep. Okay, and my guess is the mayor would really like to see us
Finish this.
get this done before he steps down.
I agree. Sure.
Our mayor has been around for a long time. There was a new person that was voted in 3.5 years ago, and he quit after about 10 months. So our former mayor was appointed by the council. He indicated his interest to come back and help us out. But under no circumstances is he going to stay beyond next, is it, I guess, May?
May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there'll be a new person, and I know that, and he has been involved in the town for, between being a member of the town council or mayor, 24 years.
At least, yes.
Easily.
Yeah.
So I think we owe that to Neil to try to get this done. All righty. So I'll be thinking of you when I'm sitting on the beach in Aruba.
Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry.
You're not going back to Europe?
Aruba,
I'm not going to Europe
not in the winter.
the next year.
Aruba sounds wonderful, man.
I'm letting Dave go to Europe this year. It's Dave.
Aruba sounds wonderful.
Yes, it is. Fish every meal. Anybody have any announcements, questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Kevin, seconded by Dave. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Oh, that's right, it's here.
Boom.
We're done, we're out of here. So I see they're still working back there,
I'm
Dave.
jealous.